Bases dropped on a Tuesday edition of Soccer Down Here, Tuesday Thoughts, and we'll be taking your thoughts on a number of things. MLS playoff changes, possibly. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about some of the roster moves that are happening around the league. Osvaldo Alonso might not be back in Seattle, among others. And we will also get into Atlanta and the New York Red Bulls this weekend in the Eastern Conference Finals. Jason Longshore, John Nelson, Jarrett Smith with you this morning. And first, I came across this, and judging from some of the conversations that we've had on this show, I needed to get a couple takes from John and Jarrett on it. The most common side dish by region for Thanksgiving meal. What do you think that is in the South? And this would be the SDH footprint.
Dressing?
Nope. I was a little surprised. And I'm glad you said dressing and not stuffing and didn't start that war, because that's a war for some people.
It is. Dressing v. stuffing. Them's fighting words.
That's the wrong hill to die on.
Oh, yeah. You don't want to go there.
You don't want to die on that hill.
In the SDH footprint, I would say mac and cheese.
Ah, it is mac and cheese, which I wouldn't have guessed. That was never on our Thanksgiving table. I love mac and cheese. It was just never part of our Thanksgiving. Some of the other ones, so out in maybe the western part of the footprint, in Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, cornbread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Out west, and this is from New Mexico, Montana, westward, salad. That's kind of boring, folks.
That's thin.
Salad?
Salad, yes.
We hang for that in these parts.
I mean, if you go to a Thanksgiving meal around here and salad is the main side dish, how many people get up and walk out?
Everybody.
Yeah.
The upper Midwest, green bean casserole, and that always made it to our table. I always liked the green bean casserole. I can work with that.
Yep.
The Ohio Valley and Michigan and Wisconsin, rolls or biscuits.
God, you people are boring.
Yeah, what's up with that?
I mean, that's like part of it, but that shouldn't be the only part.
Yeah.
The standbys for me were like green bean casserole and sweet potato souffle with praline pecans.
Ooh.
Cranberry.
Yeah, cranberry is kind of the common.
Cranberry sauce.
Down with the cranberry sauce. Even out of the can where it's like molded.
It has to be out of the can where I can see the ridges of the can.
It has to be out of the can where you see the can workings.
Yes, I'm down with that. I'm very down with that. Up in the Northeast, squash, which I'm okay with. It was never something that we did. I like squash a lot. It wasn't a Thanksgiving thing for me, but yeah, I can work with that. The salad in the West was what baffled me.
Well, no accounting for taste west of the Mississippi.
Yeah, I've and full disclosure for me is that we have a centralized location where it's family and extended family, and it usually ends up being about 20 people that invade a house in Montgomery, Alabama. And everybody brings a side, so you end up getting a lot of these different things. And the boss brings a family recipe of a rice dish, which is basically beef consomme draped over white rice, and it soaks in it forever, and it's absolutely amazing. And that's what, to me, the South is about. You have your basics, but then you have your family traditions that go with it. But salad?
Sounds like she's coming dangerously close to making a roux. A sauce.
Okay, I was going to say, what is a roux? Other than a kanga, what is a roux?
Oh no, John! Did you just do this again today? This early in the show? You don't know what a roux is?
No,
dude. I mean, I'm not like Bobby Flay or anything, but I know what a roux is. I've made a roux.
Okay, I certainly haven't. You don't want me touching anything or trying to create anything. Trust me. No, I don't.
Gathering as much.
Jared, do you want to explain this one?
I don't know if I can right now. I'm
baffled.
yeah.
Trade
I'm
you,
gonna go.
I gave you a haymaker 7 minutes into the show.
Oh,
I'm gonna go hang out. I'm gonna go catch a bus to Flavortown for a bit.
Oh no, you don't want to ever go there. John, you have to watch Food Network for about 5 hours today, and I'm sure you'll see something about it.
And that's the hook in all of this. Food Network is not something that is on my saved channels.
I think it needs to be if you don't know what a roux is. You need to put in some work, John.
Yeah, it's the back end of a word having to do with a marsupial from Australia. That's about as far as I
it's not even
can
spelled
get.
the same way. It's not even close. Not even close. Anyway,
It's Cajun, so you know the language is going to
anger?
be off. So,
What, like RUE? Is that how it's spelled?
no, it's not Rue McClanahan from the Golden Girls. No. It's Cajun.
Dios
So
mío.
ROUX.
Ah, okay. All right.
It's French.
That
It's from
word
the
I've
French
seen.
tradition.
Okay. That word I have seen, yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. The show's gone sideways in the Thanksgiving side dish portion of the show. Anyway,
here's the thing: you're not going to get nearly as much. You're not going to get condemned nearly as much in the state of Georgia for not knowing a roux as you would for the Brunswick
Drummer
stew
for the
thing.
Smiths.
no, yeah, you definitely won't. The Louisiana listeners, the New Orleans Jesters fans, will not be happy with you for that comment. But yeah, Georgia,
live with that.
you'll be okay.
You'll be fine. Yeah, there's not a problem. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
Fine.
So mac and cheese is the most disproportionately common Thanksgiving side dish in the SDH predominant footprint.
Huzzah. As it should be.
Interesting. So share with us your favorite Thanksgiving side dishes. And I'm with John. I think what it comes down to in this part of the country is, I mean, you have your staples, you have your basics that have to be there, but then you get so many different family traditions, you know, like the one you mentioned, John. Like, I wouldn't think of that as a Thanksgiving side dish, but it is a family tradition on Thanksgiving. It becomes a Thanksgiving side dish because of that. That's the common thing here.
And yeah, I mean, we have the rolls, we have salad. It is not the only thing because the entire kitchen is invaded with casseroles and family dishes and desserts that are homemade or, you know, that are passed down one way or the other. So that's the thing for anybody who's new that comes to the Thanksgiving dinner extravaganza. It's like, just bring a side, you'll be okay.
Yeah, it'll be all right. And then, I mean, the whole dessert thing is a whole nother topic and a whole nother world of discussion.
Oh, iron skillet chocolate pie.
Oh, see?
Iron skillet chocolate pie. Wow.
That sounds absolutely amazing.
I will arrange for you to have one at some point. I will make that happen.
Amazing.
Iron skillet chocolate pie with about 3.5 pounds of meringue.
Okay.
Roughly.
All right.
Yeah, see, this is the hashtag Tuesday thoughts for today, no doubt.
Well, we'll hear from the listeners their Tuesday thoughts about Thanksgiving side dishes, desserts, what have you. It is kind of a weird week here on the show, with it being a playoff week, with it being the getting close to silly season week, and stuff keeps popping up, whether it's rumor, whether it's contracts not being renewed, whether it's contracts being renewed if you're Jim Curtin in Philadelphia, but only for a year. That's an interesting.
I get
one.
that.
We'll get into that. I get it. It's weird. It's very strange. Let's start with the one that probably had the most traction on my Twitter account yesterday, and this would be the proposed changes to the MLS playoff structure. Something we've talked about, I think, since we've started talking about stuff on this show. It's an awkward format currently because of the scheduling in terms of time, because of the international breaks and where they fall. And we can yell about international breaks. We can yell about not wanting to see players leave their club to go play for their national team. You can yell about it all you want. You're wasting your time because they're not going anywhere. The World Cup is not going anywhere. Continental championships are not going anywhere. Therefore, qualifying for these competitions is not going anywhere. And when you're not qualifying for them, you have to get your opportunities to play friendlies so you can prepare for qualifying for these tournaments. And there you go. That's why international breaks are here to stay. Other leagues and competitions around the world have figured out how to handle it. The schedule makes it a little bit easier for them, sure. But they make it work. Here, not so much. A 2-week break in the middle of the playoffs is just not acceptable. It just doesn't work. You've lost momentum a little bit. You know, people, especially if you're not in a market where you're going to have a game this weekend, you kind of tune out a little bit. There's just not as much going on nationally. You're just waiting. That's bad for momentum. It's bad for publicity. It's bad for all of that. There is a proposal, according to Mickey Turner over at The Athletic, among MLS competition committee folks, that you could see some pretty big changes to the format starting next year, adding another team to go to 7 per conference, but making everything single elimination and moving everything up to where MLS Cup would have been not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before the international break. I'm not a fan of a couple different aspects of that. I don't know if it works from a competition standpoint. You're going to have more midweek games because you can't, or at least they're not talking about really moving the schedule up too much yet. You have a little bit of room to move it up, but how much of a difference is it going to make? Single elimination during the playoffs, I get the idea behind it. I totally do, and we'll talk about, I think, some of the reasoning behind it. It does, to me, make a long season come down to a crapshoot, and I'm not really a fan of that. It does give far more home field advantage to a higher seed than the current format. The current format really doesn't have a home field advantage in the 2-leg format, and we'll get into it. But real quick, before we go to break, Jarrett, what was your gut reaction when this piece started making some traction yesterday from Mickey Turner over at The Athletic?
There goes my hopes of a 2-legged final.
Yeah.
Let's get weird. Just 2-legged final. While we're at it, we'll start doing the Mexican style, Apertura Clausura, 2 parts of the season. Let's just see what we can do to. I'll see how many brains I can hurt in a limited amount of time. I have faith.
John, what was your reaction?
The thing that stuck out to me was the more midweek competition in the regular season, trying to cram everything in. It's like you're getting there, but kind of not, and so I'm like, if you could turn my thoughts into onomatopoeia. But I was kind of like, all right, there's some parts I like, but the midweek stuff to get everything compressed just to get to a deadline, to me, that's dancing kind of dangerously.
Yeah, Chiefs coach Steve on Twitter says, please turn to Chapter 13, How to Make Something Bad Even Worse, and begin reading. Yeah, not going to necessarily argue with that take. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back, dig deeper into it, and try to figure out the line of thinking here. Try to figure out what problems they're trying to solve. Try to figure out what problems they're making worse or creating. And we'll get into maybe what could be a better solution for all of this. We're going to take a break, come back. Tuesday thoughts. Share them with us on Twitter @SoccerDownHere. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, Yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
Had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski and Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here. Tuesday Thoughts edition of the show. Jason Longshore, John Nelson, Jarrett Smith with you this morning. Talking MLS playoff format. Not talking about the current playoffs just yet. We'll get into that in hour number 2. Joe Patrick will be joining us tomorrow at 9:30, not in his usual Tuesday slot. He's at the training ground, so make sure you're following J.A. Patrick 200 on Twitter for any nuggets coming from Atlanta United training this morning. But we're talking the playoff format and specifically some of the proposed changes to it. We're not the only ones with thoughts on it. Merritt Paulson, owner of the Portland Timbers, was on the Max and Herc podcast over at ESPN, and he had some thoughts about the playoffs and the format and how things are currently working and how they could work. Here's a snippet from Merritt Paulson's interview with Max Bretos and Herculez Gomez.
It's a bad situation. I mean, again, they don't control their venue, so it's not their fault. They weren't happy about it, but I think the rules should be in a scenario like that you know the team that's the lower seed then gets the opportunity to host, so you keep the time slot. I mean, that's the way. That's what I put forward to the league, and I put that forward before it was clear that we'd play Seattle. I fully expected, to be playing LAFC. We were surprised by the RSL result, but going into the first knockout phase, when it was clear that Seattle had that conflict, I voiced that concern, and I think the league agreed, that it was, but so hopefully it's something that will be addressed going forward. But I think overall, we got to take a broader look beyond that at just the overall playoff structure. And, we continually complain about the long FIFA break that we're going into now, disrupting the rhythm of the playoffs. And I think it might be fair to expect that there's some more wholesale changes to the playoff structure next year, which will hopefully, improve the product for everybody.
There's a couple things we address I'd like to get your thoughts on, because a wide variety of topics here. But let me start there with the playoff format. And is that something it's benefited? Portland's here. They're one of the Final Four teams. But is that a format you think is best for the league? Where you mentioned the tinkering and maybe
what would you do?
Can expect. What would you do? How would you plan it all out?
Well, I mean, one again, I don't want to, this is just my opinion, right? But yeah. I think certainly knockout structure all the way through, which is more streamlined and puts more emphasis on regular season performance and shortens it up and tightens it up, and might be something to consider.
Okay, so the last part where Paulson's talking about moving to a knockout structure and the emphasis it puts on the regular season. He's 100% right. It does. It gives the higher seed the advantage in a 90-minute match. We know what the home field records are around the league. They're very good. It's very tough to go on the road and win in this league. It's very tough to go on the road and win in any league, but especially in MLS. So if it's one game and the higher seed gets to host, yeah, you've increased the home field advantage for sure. It's different than a Champions League format, but these are two different competitions. So I can buy into that part. I'm not necessarily a fan. And Jarrett talked about having a two-leg final. I like the opportunity for both sets of fans to get a match. Across the board. I like that opportunity. It's what Mexico does, and I think it works very well. They have their playoffs in the Liguilla with home and away all the way through. Now, they condense it, and I'd be fine if MLS followed that type of format where you're playing, say, this round where it's Atlanta and the Red Bulls. You would play on Wednesday at the lower-seeded place and Saturday at the higher-seeded place. Or you'd play Thursday at the lower-seeded place and Sunday at the higher-seeded place. It's a quick turnaround. It condenses it, but it's worked for them for a while. I think you have a model to follow there. If you're worried about the timing, that would be the way I would go with it. If you just want to make the regular season mean more in terms of seeding and what that gives you, then yeah, going to knockouts does it. I'm just not a fan of one game deciding your season. I think it comes down to more of a roll of the dice as opposed to who was the best team in the calendar year in Major League Soccer. How do you guys, let's start there. How do you guys feel, and John, we'll start with you, about the difference between knockouts all the way through or two-leg series all the way through?
I like the idea of the two-leg all the way through, which I guess translates into a notion of less teams making the postseason in that regard. And
that's a different conversation. Hold that part. We'll get into the number of teams, because you could make the current 6-team format if you wanted to stick with that. And it sounds like, they want teams to get into the playoffs. I get it. But you could make that work with two legs all the way through if you condense it. And it's not a week between games. It's half a week between games. If you did that, you could make it work. It's going to be grueling, but that's soccer. That happens. So, okay. So don't worry about the number of teams, but just legs versus knockout.
Legs.
What are your pros, cons? Legs, two-leg series. Why two-leg series over knockouts in the postseason?
I like the idea of, if you want to put the word rewarding in quotation marks, both fan bases for making it to a postseason. My counter is midweek game, lack of attendance. You want the place to be packed to represent that particular market, and you know that one of those teams is going to get the midweek game in this, and the attendance may not be what you want it to be. And then player health, turnaround time, all that kind of stuff. Getting back to the grueling comment that you made a little earlier, but I think that if you really want to be a demonstrative champion, then you make your way through this grueling postseason structure. So I guess for me, my pro is giving both markets a chance to shine. My con is the quick turn, the possibility of a lack of attendance, and player health.
Player attendance part of, or the just the crowd attendance thing on a midweek. I'm going to throw a little bit of cold water on that, and I know people are going to turn sideways after what we saw in some of the knockout rounds. I put that down to a lack of time to sell tickets more than it being midweek. When you look back at last year and you look at previous years, when you had time and you had midweek games, and last year they did a lot of midweek games, mainly for TV, because ratings are better midweek, and TV really wanted to give that a shot. Remember last year you had like Monday and Thursday and kind of odd days, Tuesday games. Like, it was all over the place. Ratings were a little better, not much better if they were, so that didn't really pay off, although people say and cite midweek games having higher TV ratings. The attendance for, like, the conference finals, where you had time to sell the tickets, was good. The attendance for even the conference semifinals was pretty good. I think what we're seeing this year are the teams that struggle to sell tickets, period, struggled to sell tickets on short notice, which is not exactly a shock when you break it down. Jarrett, your thoughts on what would be the advantages as you see it if the league goes to this proposed format of knockout round all the way through one game and one and dones all the way through the postseason? What would be the advantages for the league if they go to that?
I mean, we'll get into the more teams part in a minute, but you'd be able to put more teams in there. It fits, I think, more the American style of really what we expect from our playoffs, even though, I mean, in Europe you do a lot of two-leg, in South America you do a lot of two-leg things. We're used to series, like drawn-out series, or one-offs. And, I mean, I think it would fit with that concept if you want to keep going in that direction with, like American sports in general. If you want to, that's fine. I have no problem with that. Like, I prefer two-leg all the way through, but I'm not to the point where I'm not gonna write a manifesto about why they should not do, one-offs across the board. It's just it does put a lot more emphasis on the regular season, and if you're theoretically compacting the regular season to get to this situation, I'm going to be curious about what shape teams are going to be in by the time you get to this and how much you compact the playoffs. Now, if you're doing one-offs, I mean, do you give them more time in between games to rest up?
Yeah, I don't know. And this is where I see some of the logic here. I get single elimination prioritizes regular season performance. Okay, that's a good thing. That's a good thing as it stands, because the two-leg system doesn't. The two-leg system is set to basically minimize home field advantage, because in a Champions League format or in a World Cup qualifying playoff format, seeds they're not directly comparable. So, the winner of one group versus the second place in another group where they didn't play the same schedule, it's not exactly one team has demonstrated an advantage to earn a home field advantage in a one game. You know what I mean? So I get the two-leg series in a Champions League format. I like it for strategy. I like it because then both teams in an MLS playoff get a home game, which is a good thing for the fans to be rewarded. From a perspective of prioritizing the importance of the regular season, a two-leg series does not do that. It is a very, very slight advantage from a competitive standpoint to the team who has the second leg at home and would have extra time and penalties in their own building. That's it. Like I've said many times about this upcoming Atlanta Red Bull series, I think in this one, Atlanta has a big advantage by having the first leg at home, because I think they get to set the tone for the series at home first. And against the Red Bulls and the way this one should play out, I think that suits Atlanta. So I understand the competitive aspect of going to knockouts. There's two elements of it that I do not get at all in light of that. I don't understand expanding to another team, 7 in each conference, which would mean, I'm assuming, the number 1 seed would get a bye from the first round. 2 would play 7. 3 would play 6. 4 would play 5 in knockouts. Then you're down to a conference semi and a conference final and a MLS Cup. I'm not I know we get worried about watering down the regular season and half the teams making it. I mean, if this happens in 2019, 14 of 24 teams would make the playoffs. It's not a great look. Once you get to 28, it's half the teams, which is comparable
the NHL.
to your NHLs, your NBAs. However,
NFL too.
Yeah. And the NFL would be the one you would look at here because, people talk about NHL and NBA and so many teams making the playoffs.
The NFL, you have 16 teams out of 32 that make the playoffs.
Right.
I think people just kind of skirt over that when they get into this discussion.
Right, but the way it plays out is a little different there because, okay, that many teams make the playoffs, but how many teams don't go into the wild card round 2? Your top 2 in each conference. So
top 2 seeds. So I would hope for something like that with MLS, that if we're doing one-offs, give me your top 2 seeds with a bye.
And that's what you have now. That's why I don't like adding another one so only your conference champ gets a bye. Because here's the thing to me about it. If you were playing a series and it's 2 versus 7, you would expect the second team, regardless of home field advantage, you would expect the number 2 team in the conference to beat the number 7 team on a fairly regular basis in that, if it's 2 legs. One game, anything can happen. I don't like finishing second in the conference and the number 7 team gets a 1 game where they can come in, park the bus, go to penalties, and win on penalties in advance. I don't love that from a competitive standpoint. I don't love that from a competition standpoint. That's the balance here that MLS has to try to find. I'm not a fan of the 7 teams, the adding another one. I'm honestly not the biggest fan of 6, but I can somewhat understand it. And I don't like moving everything up. That's the part that I really have a problem with, and I'll tell you why before we go to break, and then we'll get into some of your thoughts on it because we've got some Tuesday thoughts on this. The reason I don't like moving everything up, okay, if MLS Cup was on, what would it have been this year? The 11th, November 11th. Okay, that would mean your regular season would end before the October international break. And then you'd have that break. Then you'd go into your postseason. You're condensing everything into the regular season even more when on the horizon, as the league has said, as Don Garber has said, as others have said, as others have talked about, you have the CONCACAF Champions League. You have the U.S. Open Cup, which is growing in importance. You are talking to Liga MX about some kind of a competition between the 2 leagues. Those games have to happen sometime in that window, in that regular season. So you're not just adding, I believe it would be, according to Mickey Turner's article, 6 Wednesday nights. I mean, you're already seeing MLS has discussed the proposed changes with the Players Association, with team execs, with Pro, telling the various stakeholders to prepare for more Wednesday night games. The average number of weekday games per team will go from 4 to 6. So you're adding more midweek games on top of potentially adding more midweek games with a Liga MX competition soon. I mean, maybe not next year, but soon. Open Cup games are midweek. CONCACAF Champions League games for some teams are midweek at the beginning of the season. You're adding a ton of midweek games over different competitions, and you're adding more to it from a league competition when you're already talking about adding more to it from other competitions. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
I will say, though, that I think I would imagine that ESPN and the like would not be hating on all this right now because if you're doing that, that's more content for them. Like more ready-made, that's less. We don't have to put someone in a basement to do anything. We can just roll out another game. So.
Sure. No, in terms of more games, yeah, that's fine. And adding more games, I'm a fan of. I want to see whatever this Liga MX competition becomes, or if they can figure out something with Copa Libertadores, whatever. I want to see more competitive games. That's good. I'm good with that. I don't like making it even more condensed when you're already going to add games into the midweek format later. I don't like doing this where you're adding more in your league format. Because now I know World Cup 2022 is something you have to think about because of its time frame. And if you're doing all of this to prepare for that, I can somewhat understand it, even if I don't like it. Because that, you have to be finished by that November international break for that tournament, because players are going to have to go to their World Cup teams. So I get it. But I think long-term, without that World Cup on the horizon, I would rather see things pushed back a window and have the regular season end going into the November break, come back, and then you can create a playoff format. If you want single elimination, fine. You can do single elimination after the November window and have MLS Cup roughly in the same time frame it is now. You could even do the two-leg format and condense it like Mexico does, where there's Wednesday, Saturday, Thursday, Sunday, in the postseason, in a round, and have MLS Cup roughly where it is now. I like MLS Cup where it is now from a long-term planning perspective. You don't have quite as long of an off-season. All that's good. There's more room for midweek games in the season. It can work. But if it's all because of World Cup 2022, where you're going to have to deal with that, say it's that. Because otherwise, I don't understand adding more competitions, as you're talking about with Liga MX or Copa Libertadores or whatever, and moving more regular season games into a midweek where you're going to be just playing Saturday, Wednesday most of the year.
And you touched on it. That's a whole nother kettle of fish. I'm very curious what the players' union, where they would stand on more games, and not just that, but shrinking or growing the shrinking or growing the off season.
Multiple competitions simultaneously.
I mean, are they going after more time off or a shorter off season? But yeah, then they're going to want to see the base pay go up. There's a lot of moving parts here.
I think the obvious thing is most people would think that they're going for a longer off season. I don't think they are. I think players now understand that can be a big disadvantage when you look at the game around the world. So I think you want a manageable off season, but you don't want a 5-month off season. You don't want your season to end beginning of October. You don't make the postseason, or you get knocked out in the first game in mid-October. Okay, big whoop. Then you're done, and you're not playing another competitive game until the beginning of March. That's not good. That's the opposite of good. That is what we've been trying to get away from for a long time, and it looks like that's where we're potentially going back to, unless there's something else coming about some kind of winter competition, and maybe that's where your Liga MX thing is going to be, although it doesn't really fit in their schedule. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what the long-term thought is here. If it's about World Cup 2022 and Qatar and that whole plan that you have to prepare for, then say it so we know, and then we can look at this and say, okay, well, I get it. You're working towards that. You're going to have to deal with that. You're not going to be able to avoid it. There you go. Let's take a quick break. We'll get into the Tuesday thoughts from the listeners on the proposed playoff format changes after this. Stay with us.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Tuesday Thoughts edition of Soccer Down here. Jason Longshore, John Nelson, Jarrett Smith with you this morning. Taking your thoughts on the MLS playoff format. Ivy's got lots of thoughts. I like it.
Ivy's fired up.
Does she like the knockout round or does she like the 2-leg series?
She wants Clausura.
Oh wow, she's bold.
Yeah. She wants first season, second season. She wants the open and the close, y'all. Yeah. No, she just found a soccer ball and just runs at it and screams go. So
I like it.
Yeah.
Does she run like an ostrich? That's the question.
Or does she do the Fred Flintstone PK?
Doesn't really run at all. Kind of fast walks. Haven't really figured out the running part yet. But it's not really running. It's more of
lunging.
It's more of a brisk movement.
Get there. Okay. Artist formerly known as TLC has a take, has a solution. 35 Saturdays between February 23rd and October 5th. 3 Saturdays get lost to international breaks. I say everyone play through the March break, start playoffs on October 9th, then keep double-leg conference semis and finals, single-leg final on November 9th. That should be plenty of time. 33 weekends, you can play almost the entire season without midweek games. I will disagree about playing through the break. I want to see MLS get to where they're not playing on international breaks, period, because it doesn't work. I would only have teams play on it in case of a reschedule, in case of bad weather reschedule or whatever. I'd like to see teams not have to worry about playing matches missing their international players. I would like to get to that point. And I don't mind moving the season up a little bit. February 23rd is fine. I think we get really worked up about February 23rd versus March 3rd. It's going to be so much worse weather-wise. No, there's not some magic date.
8 days.
There's not some magic line where, no, December 8th versus December 15th. No. We can't know. It's okay.
It depends on where you are.
But a week here, a week there.
You're
going to
run.
Difference.
Yeah,
it makes no difference.
You can, and honestly, you can get around some of that with the way you schedule stuff. You can say, "Hey, Minnesota, you're going to start the season on the road in February because, that's not happening."
Yeah, and then the flip side is Minnesota. If you are your top seed in the Western Conference and you have the best opportunity to host MLS Cup in the freezing cold of St. Paul, Minnesota, more power to you.
Yes, absolutely.
So, we've had last 2 MLS Cups in Toronto, and, hey, they earned it. So
yeah. Hey, Minnesota goes out there and earns MLS Cup basically playing north of the wall, then, man, y'all earned it.
We talk ourselves around this in so many different ways where it's, you look at leagues in Europe that play through winter months and play in bad weather, and then we're like, no, we can't do that. But you can. But we don't want to, but you can. You're going to have to at some point. It's just there's no way around it. The thing about Tofka TLC's take that I don't like is playing through a break. I'm not a fan of, and I'm not a fan of having MLS Cup on November 9th. Let's look at it from a strategic standpoint. So if you're trying to get around and you want to get the most bang for your buck with MLS Cup, I don't know if early November gets you more attention than where it is now from a PR perspective. I think right now, having it the week after the college football conference conference championships works really well, because they did it for a while where it was, I mean, I remember flipping back and forth between Georgia, Alabama in the SEC championship game and MLS Cup. That was not fun. When they moved it back a week, that was a good thing. If you want to look at it from a strategic standpoint, and I don't think this would ever work because of the international break in November, but the date that I would shoot for to have MLS Cup and make it a thing every year would be the Friday after Thanksgiving. If you were able to make a format work there, that's a sports day that would really work for you, and it would be a destination day with, primetime Friday night MLS Cup on that day. But yes, we have high school football in the South. If MLS can't beat out high school football, then come on, I'm sorry. Football. No offense, John, but there's not much Friday night college football on that day. There's some, but you're going to have competition no matter what. You're not going to find a day where you're not going to have some other sport going on. It's not going to happen. So if you wanted to look for a specific day, that would be the one I would look for. I think where they have it right now is a really good spot. I think it works. Let's get into some of the takes on the Twitters, because I'm sure there are quite a few.
Yes.
Chewy has one.
Yeah.
Let me get this one first, John. MLS needs to get rid of rivalry third-round matches, unnecessary fixture congestion. That'd cut out a week or two. Season really shouldn't go on till December 8th. The third rivalry game is to balance the schedule. It's been a necessity at times. It won't be a necessity once they get everything fully expanded. So that's not really the issue here. I know what you're saying, Chewy. I get it. One reason you've had it here lately is because you'd have an odd number of games. So you'd have an odd number of home and away, and some teams would have more home games than others, and that would not work. So it's better to have that third game against somebody and balance everything out and make it work. I agree. Long term, you're not going to have that. Season really shouldn't go on until December 8th. I don't know if I'm necessarily against going on that long. I like the fact that the offseason has shortened. I think that's a good thing. It's a good thing for player development. It's a good thing long term. I don't think it's a good thing for the players to not have competitive games for 4 or 5 months. It doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. I think you'd have to figure something out about that. Cutting a week or two in different spots, I don't know if it really changes anything. I think you have to worry about how to deal with these breaks and how to maximize dealing with these breaks. That's the issue more than cutting a week or two. And MLS, it sounds like, is opting to deal with the break by getting done before the November break. I think it's because of World Cup 2022. I don't think there's another logical reason for it to do it this way. Not with all the other stuff you're talking about adding in terms of competition with Liga MX. I think you're condensing things even more, making it more complicated by going this way, as opposed to pushing the regular season back to end before the November break, then having your playoffs, if it's single elimination, okay, whatever, and then having your final around the same time as it is now. What else we got on the Twitters, John? One more before we go to break.
Tafka's follow-up is the current scenario less than ideal, yes, but going with more midweek matches and single elimination playoff and adding teams to those playoffs is even worse in my opinion. I have a hard time accepting that MLS champion is merely a team who won 4 games at the season's end.
I don't care about the number of games. I don't like adding another team to the playoffs because I don't think you have to. I don't think there's any benefit to adding another team to the playoffs. Midweek games, I don't like adding more midweek games, although, at some point the league has to be in a position to be able to draw well across the board for midweek games. If not for league games, it's going to be for whatever the Superliga with Liga MX competition is, and you're going to want to draw better for Open Cup, and you're going to want to draw well for CONCACAF Champions League early in the season. Those are all going to be midweeks. So you can't be afraid of midweek games in terms of an attendance perspective. teams have to get better at drawing for those, and they have to tell the story better if it's about understanding the competition. But I'm just not a fan of condensing the schedule in this way. When you're talking about adding more, I'm not a fan of adding another playoff team and then giving that 7 seed, a chance to knock off the number 2 in a one game. I don't want to see a number 7 team come in and say, you know what, we can't play with these top teams in the conference. We can sit back and play a 5-4-1 and play for penalties. That's not going to be fun. It will be dramatic. It will be tense. I don't know if it's the greatest advertisement for the league. And this is something they have to consider. This is something they have to think about. Let's take a break. We'll come back with a couple more thoughts before we finish the first hour of SDH on a Tuesday Thoughts edition. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Tuesday Thoughts edition of the show. Thinking about some playoffs and playoff formats after Mickey Turner's article over at The Athletic yesterday. John, what are some of the other thoughts from the peeps?
Friend of the show, Joe McCurdy, hashtag Tuesday Thoughts. The whole reason we have MLS playoffs in the first place was to add appeal to American tradition in other sports. I would love, direct quote, to simply see an overall season champion crowned, no playoffs, like in Europe.
Never going to happen. Never, ever going to happen. And it's not just an American thing. Mexico has playoffs. We always forget about Mexico's playoffs and how dramatic they are. It's look at Mexico. Okay, so they're quarterfinals. This is for this season right now. This is the Apertura. Now they do split their season. So that is something to keep in mind. But the Apertura, the first leg, the quarterfinals, 8 teams make it. First legs are on November 28th and 29th. Second legs are played December 1st and 2nd, very condensed. Semifinals, first legs on December 5th or 6th. Second legs on December 8th or 9th. Final, first legs on December 13th. Second leg December 16th. Their playoffs start on November 28th, and they're done by December 16th. Why can't that work here?
That's like the FCS. It's like the FCS proving to the FBS that you can do a postseason playoff period.
That's open.
Put the right team in
another kettle of fish.
Yeah, especially when you put the wrong team in the 4 seed and condemn them to the death that is North Dakota State.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if that really translates here. All right. What else are people thinking?
But just the notion that you can do a playoff structure more than anything was my point. ATL-UTD fan number one.
No. Hold on. We know you can do a playoff structure. That's not the issue here. We know you can do a playoff structure and it can work. The college football issues with playoffs is a whole different, more complicated thing than we have in MLS. MLS has had playoffs from day one. They've had a bunch of different formats. I think this currently is the best format they've ever had. It's better than the best of three that they had in the beginning.
Yeah,
like literally a best of three. That was how you thought you had to decide games because people thought that American soccer fans couldn't understand aggregate scoring. Then you went to I think first to 7 points type of model, which was weird too, where you'd have a third game in a series. It's brutal for scheduling. You have, if necessary, games, and it's just no. So then you go to the two legs, and you go to the more of the standard format, and you have some knockout games mixed in for wild cards and all that. This is the best format the league's ever had. Is it perfect? No, because I don't know if there is a perfect playoff format. But MLS has had playoffs. You're not trying to prove to the league that you can have it and do it. I think right now you're tweaking something because of something you don't want to talk about. You're trying to change it because of the World Cup in 2022. Because your explanation for it right now doesn't make any sense. You're adding more schedule congestion, honestly, for no reason at the moment. When just look to Mexico and how they do playoffs. You can do a playoff series over a week. November 28th, December 1st. Quarterfinal series done. You have a playoff structure with 8 teams that starts on November 28th and ends 18 days later on December 16th. That's doable. It's 100% doable. What else we got, John? One more before we go to break.
All right, ATL-UTD fan number one, if they move to single elimination, there's no big deal in fighting for 2 through 7. And for me, the Supporters Shield will take on way more meaning in a one-off playoff format where a lucky 7 seed can win the MLS Cup. Hashtag not a fan.
No. I completely disagree that home field means nothing 2 through 7. I think it means more than it does now. I think you want to finish in the top half so you have home field advantage, at least in some playoff games. I do think Supporter Shield will mean more. I agree. Because it's one less game, one less round, you're at risk. I agree with that. Winning your conference will mean more. But home field will be incredibly meaningful because you can go through the knockout history in Major League Soccer, and I mean, we don't have to get into home field records throughout the season. Just look at knockout situations. Yeah, this year was an anomaly. You don't see that very often where road teams are winning in the knockout round on the regular. Home field advantage is very important. So if it's 2 through 7, if it's 2 versus 7, 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5, competitions that get into the 2, the 3, the 4 slot, it's going to be strong. I think that part will be good for it. But I do agree that the Supporter Shield and conference regular season crown will be even more important in this type of format. That's it for hour one. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back, try to finish up the playoff format discussion in the first segment of hour number 2. Then we'll get into Atlanta and New York. If you have thoughts about Atlanta and the Red Bulls, would love to hear them. If you have questions, concerns going into the series, it starts on Sunday, go ahead and tweet them at us at Soccer Down Here. We'll be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2, Soccer Down Here, Tuesday Thoughts edition for November 20th. Jason Longshore, John Nelson, Jarrett Smith with you this morning, talking about MLS playoff format, potential changes that could happen as soon as next year, where you see a 7th team in the postseason. Everything goes to knockout rounds, one game, higher seed hosts, and you finish the MLS season before the November international break. A couple more thoughts on the Twitters before we start digging into this year's playoffs and Atlanta and the Red Bulls. John, what else do we have?
At Tim Russell Jr., so Tim Russell Jr., major competition and branding issues need to be addressed holistically. Expansion provides the chance to reset. The playoffs are, to me, literally the least important thing for MLS to be tweaking.
It's something that I think needs to be discussed because of the international break in November that I don't think they've ever truly managed. But I'm not as worked up about the format of the playoffs. I'm worked up about the scheduling of the playoffs. That's the issue I have. The format works for me. I'd be fine if they went to 2 legs all the way through, including the first round. I'd be fine if they went down to the top 4 in each conference going in, but I kind of understand why they don't want to go in that direction. Okay. If you're going to do it this way, do it this way. There's no benefit to me, no dramatic benefit to adding a 7th team, especially if you're going to single games. If you added a 7th team and kept it in the current format, it's more palatable to me. If you added a 7th team and made the first round 2 legs, it'd be fine. I wouldn't love it, but I could deal. I don't like adding a 7th team and making everything single elimination. That I'm not a fan of. It doesn't feel right for the number 2 seed to be bounced out on penalties in the first round and their season being done. I'm not a big fan of that. So the format, I think, is fine as it is. The scheduling is where I have a problem. Not changing the format, just changing the schedule to deal with this November international break better.
Michael Ruiz says he doesn't like the proposed one-game playoff round, but I do like the more condensed calendar to have MLS Cup in early to mid-November. I don't like adding additional teams to the playoff. I like a one-game final. Gives advantage to the Supporters' Shield winner and best regular season finisher.
It does. I mean, you definitely, the higher seeds get advantages in a single game format. It definitely does. I don't buy that moving MLS Cup up a month is any dramatic difference. It does deal with the November break, and that's the one issue I have, is dealing with the November break. You avoid it. It makes sense when you're preparing for 2022 because you have to be done by then. You can't do what I've proposed where you go past the November break and then finish, where you run your season up to the November break. You can't do that because of 2022. After 2022 World Cup, maybe you could do that. You're not going to be able to do it in 2022. So if you're going to go the other way, all right, I get it. Just say that's the reason. Because I don't think there's any benefit outside of maybe slightly better weather to moving up MLS Cup to where it would have been on November 11th or November 10th this year. I don't know what other advantage there is.
And shout out to FIFA for making sure that we got to play a World Cup in the winter and fall in Qatar because, money, money, money. Nice job, Sepp.
Well, not Sepp. It's Infantino now. You can't blame this one on Sepp.
Yeah, Sepp was in charge when it happened.
Yeah, I actually probably could blame some of it on Sepp. I'm sure Sepp got some cash in his pocket through it.
Oh no, he certainly got no grift or graft from anything of these discussions. Never, never, never.
Sure.
Katie Weaver, I'm going to split this one because her second part we'll save for the end of the show. Hashtag Tuesday thoughts on the postseason. Don't like adding more teams to the postseason, but going into December starts getting cold and feels dragged out.
The reason to me it feels dragged out is because of this break. If you managed this break differently, it wouldn't feel as dragged out. It feels dragged out because we're going to have 2 weeks between games. That's why it feels dragged out. The cold, I mean, you'd have to do some weather comparisons for me, guys, but how much of a difference in Toronto weather would there be between December 8 and November 11? A few degrees? Maybe a slightly less chance of snow? I mean, it was 35 when we were there on October 28th. It wasn't that much better than it was for the last 2 MLS Cups. So
I don't know. I'd have to pull out Poor Richard's Almanac and take a look.
Yeah, check and see what the Farmer's Almanac is telling us for the future of weather in Toronto or New York or Boston or what have you, and maybe that will direct it. I don't think it's a dramatic difference. To me, the biggest issue with the MLS playoffs is playing a format that has a break in the middle of it in this November break. That's the problem with it. That's why it feels dragged out. That's why we're all kind of like, well, we're in limbo waiting for the next round of the playoffs, this type of stuff.
Friend of the show, Mark Fishkin, asking, do you like more weeknight matches or a shortening of the schedule?
Well, he was asking Michael Ruiz, who said I don't like the proposed 1-game playoff round, but I do like the more condensed calendar, blah, blah. So Mark, and remember, Mark is in New York. He does the Seeing Red podcast, which I'll be on tonight. I believe that'll go out late tonight or early tomorrow. Red Bulls have problems drawing on midweek games. They do.
A lot of teams do. That's not just a Red Bull-centric thing.
No, it's not. There are probably half to 2/3, maybe even 3/4 of the league that don't like midweek games because they don't draw as well. What I don't want to see is Atlanta get dumped with a lot of midweek games because they draw. That would be the worst thing you could do, because then you're hurting teams that actually do really well at the gate because, well, they can handle it. Well, it's not fair to Atlanta fans who would prefer weekend games. So, I don't know. I mean, Mark's asking definitely from a New York perspective, as he should, because that's what he is seeing firsthand. I don't want to see the schedule shortened. You're going to have to figure out format as you get to 28 teams, and you're going to have to figure out, what that looks like. Who do you play home and away? Who do you play one time? What's the sweet spot in games? Is it 32? Is it 34? Is it 36? What is it? The competition format will direct the number of games to a degree. I'm not a fan of more weeknight matches for league play because you're already talking about adding more midweek matches for a competition with Liga MX. So now you're going to be basically having, if you are a top team in the league and you're playing in CONCACAF, you're going to start with midweek games plus league games. Then you might have a little bit of a break, except you're going to have some league games thrown in midweek because that's new. You're going to have Open Cup games in midweek. You're going to have whatever this Mexico competition is in midweek. You're making it more congested by moving more league games to midweek matches, which I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of adding more to make it more complicated when you're already talking about adding more in different competitions. I worry that teams will decide to take the Open Cup less seriously because they might have to. I worry about teams running out of gas, especially the CONCACAF teams who are playing midweek games early and are going to keep playing more midweek games as the year goes on. If you're going to do this, add a couple roster spots. Add some money to the cap so you can go deeper into your roster and have more quality.
And then FC Waffle with a question. Why can't they just do a modified schedule in World Cup years?
That would be my thing. Is I don't think you need, and we don't know. I'm speculating that this proposed format is a direct response to the World Cup 2022, which is the only time it will be that time of year. It's a one-off. That's why I wouldn't be making all these crazy modifications. If it was me and I could get the owners to buy in, I would do what I've talked about. Same playoff format, 2 legs all the way through. You schedule it like Mexico. Your MLS Cup is roughly the same week in December, maybe a week later if you need to have the extra week. You go from there. You could do knockouts in the first round of the playoffs. I'd be okay with that if that's the trade-off. All right, so that's what you do. You have your regular season run up to the November break. You take the November break, you come back and you do the postseason. That would be the way that I would schedule it. Going into 2021 and 2022, 2021, you would do the normal schedule. 2022, you'd start the season a couple weeks earlier. And if you have to have some more midweek matches in that year because of the World Cup and you have to be done by November 11, 12, whatever the date is, then that's what you have to do that year and you have a shorter off season. And that's it. I don't know why you're making a whole bunch of crazy changes to get there when you're talking about adding more games in another competition already. That's the thing that we're leaving out of this whole playoff discussion, folks. You've already been talking about a competition with Mexico. Copa Libertadores is something Don Garber threw a lot of cold water on last week. Okay, fine. But he did talk about the Mexican competition. That's more games. You're not going to play them on weekends. If you do, you're moving more league games into midweek anyway. If you're playing a midweek, you're already adding more midweek games. Why do you want to add more midweek games on top of more midweek games? It doesn't make any sense to condense the schedule when you're talking about adding more competition. That's the problem here. Nobody's talking about that part of it. That's what's going to be the big problem. Because then you're going to force teams into decisions about, I can't take the Open Cup seriously because I don't have the depth to do it. I've got 3 center backs hurt. I can't go for this game. I want to lose in the Open Cup. And you're going to get to that Mexico competition. And teams are going to say, I can't compete here. I've got a league game on Saturday, and I'm in 8th place, and I'm trying to get into the playoffs because that's what matters to my fans and my market. And you're already devaluing a new competition that you need to add value to. By condensing the schedule and talking about adding more competition, you are creating a huge conundrum for your teams down the road. And you don't have to. It's unnecessary to me. You could go, if the competition format you want is single game elimination, go to single game elimination in the schedule that roughly you have now. You don't have to have as many playoff dates. So you can push the schedule back. You can take your break between the regular season and the postseason in the November international break. And you have your postseason after that, and you finish about the same time. And if you have to change it for 2022 because the World Cup happens in Qatar and the schedule is wonky, you do it for that year, and that's it. If you're going to add more competition with Mexico or South America or whatever, and you're going to have to take breaks, folks, for the Gold Cup, and you're going to have to take a break in 2020 if the proposed Copa America, including CONCACAF teams, happens, you're going to take a break there. You're going to take a break in 2026 for the World Cup. You're going to have these summer breaks. Why are you condensing the calendar even more? It's not logical. So that's my problem with it, if I didn't make that clear enough.
I think that's safe to say.
It's frustrating because I feel
Yes.
like if the idea is to go to single game, if that is the sticking point for owners, that they want the regular season to mean more, they want that, okay, cool. I can trade off the 7th team getting in even. I don't like it, but that's not my hang-up here. My hang-up is you're going to be forcing teams, your top teams, to play meaningful games Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, Wednesday, throughout a condensed schedule for no good reason. You don't have to do it that way. That's the frustrating part. I have more of a problem with moving the schedule up and condensing the calendar than the playoff format change. And we'll see. Just what I want people to remember is think of this, and if this gets announced after the Board of Governors meeting in December after MLS Cup, if this gets announced, be on the lookout for that competition conversation with Mexico. Because if you condense the calendar and add that, you're making it more difficult for your teams to operate. And again, for no good reason. So we'll see. Stay tuned. Mickey Turner's article definitely got people talking. And if it was a trial balloon to see what the reaction would be, you've got reactions. We'll see what happens. It's an interesting time for MLS as it continues to grow. I just don't want to see it make a move that potentially could make things more difficult down the road. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to get into Atlanta and the New York Red Bulls because the Eastern Conference Finals start on Sunday. Red Bulls coming to town to the Benz. We're going to talk about what the Red Bulls have to do to get the result in the first leg, what Atlanta has to defend against in the first leg, what they have to worry about. As we start to dig into this series, we'll dig deeper as the week goes on. But we're going to take a quick break, reset. We'll be back after this.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
Living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
Had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky and Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, November 20th edition. Getting ready for Atlanta United and the New York Red Bulls Eastern Conference Finals, Leg 1 on Sunday at the Benz. Little bit of news yesterday in the Atlanta United world. Romario Williams is done for the rest of the season with an ankle injury, and we had a question about what that could mean, John.
Yeah, and bottom line coming from Elliot Beaven. So who replaces Romario on the bench?
It's not an easy answer. When you look at who it could be, who hasn't been factoring in, Brandon Vasquez has been injured. Don't know where he stands right now, but he hasn't played in a while due to injury. Lagos Kunga has only been in 118 this season. He has not played in Major League Soccer as of yet. John Gallagher is not on the 30-man roster, so he is unavailable. He was loaned to USL at the end of the season, or in the middle of the season when you're moving around international slots and stuff. So Gallagher is not available. Okonkwo was loaned to Charleston. He's not available. Gordon Wild not available. So you don't get any ideas about you can bring them up. You can't. Your roster's frozen. Maybe Kunga, possibly, depending on how he has looked in training. He finished the USL season very well. He's not a like-for-like replacement. I think if you're looking at Romario Williams would have been the like-for-like replacement for Joseph Martinez. If for some reason Joseph had to come out of a match, you'd probably be turning to Tito Villalba in that case as the like-for-like. Kunga could find his way into some 18s because of it and be an option off the bench, but he's not going to be a direct replacement for Romario Williams. I don't think there is one, to be perfectly honest. I think if you were looking at Romario replacing Joseph or playing with Joseph in a match as we finish up the season, it would be Villalba who would be in that role.
And getting into, I'm trying to see if there's anybody else who has chimed in, so feel free to chime in with questions when it comes to Red Bulls as we get ready for this. But that was the first question in the barn so far, having to do with the matchup itself.
Well, Jarrett, what's your main question coming in for the Red Bulls side of things? What do the Red Bulls have to do to get a result on Sunday at Mercedes-Benz? How do they approach this first leg, in your opinion?
Not like they approached the first 30 minutes of the first time they played Mercedes-Benz this year.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you that much, because that game was a weird VAR away from being 2-0 in Atlanta really putting their foot down in the game. They settled themselves down, and Atlanta started making mistakes, and Red Bulls did Red Bulls things. I don't know how they go into this and approach it, because as much as that score line tells you that they came into Atlanta and conquered, it was a really weird game. I don't know how straightforward this one's going to be for them coming in, and especially the way Atlanta played against NYC. Atlanta threw kind of a screwball at everybody, and Red Bull saw that. Chris Armas isn't dumb. That team isn't dumb. They're not bad. They're very good. They're the best regular season we've ever seen. They saw that. I'm curious how they approach it, knowing, hey, Atlanta might decide to sit and play physical with us, and we haven't had to fight them in that form yet. I'm really curious what they look like. I honestly don't know what they're going to do coming in.
Yeah, let's go back to May when the Red Bulls were here last time, May 20th, Sunday night game. That was strange. It was a very strange match the way it played out, and I agree. Red Bulls cannot come in and approach the match in the same way because they were nearly run out of the building, and it was a very awkward match early on. So Atlanta had chances early. Remember, this was the game where Luis Robles couldn't play for the first time in a long time, and Ryan Mera had a big night, a big day, very big day. Ezequiel Barco gets the goal started, gets the scoring started with the first goal. Atlanta had chances after that. You have the goal, I'm looking back now, 4 minutes later. Yeah, 5 minutes later, where Joseph Martinez looks like he has the second goal. Then it gets called back. I mean, Matt Doyle tweeted, and I'm looking back at the timeline on MLS Soccer. It's kind of funny to see it now. Matt Doyle tweeted, "Oh, man, no way that's a foul," on the Joseph goal that was called back for a foul because he clipped Tim Parker after being stepped on. We know all about it. It took 3-4 minutes for that to be called back. It was. That gave Red Bulls a chance to regroup, and they did. They 100% did. They took advantage of Atlanta United falling apart a little bit. I mean, let's be fair. Atlanta fell apart mentally after that goal's called back. It would have been 2-0. It was 1-0. 4 minutes later, Red Bulls earn a penalty.
I was about to say, if you don't call it that, I will. They collapsed. They collapsed emotionally after that. If you didn't say it, I was going to do it. So
no, they did, and you got to remember the context here. This was not just isolated. Bad VAR call goes against you, and you fall apart. A couple weeks before, you had a goal called back using video assistant referee against Kansas City in a very questionable situation. Mark Geiger was the center referee in that one. He was the VAR for the Red Bulls match. This was when Tata Martino blasted Geiger after the game because he was involved in two different scenarios that affected Atlanta United, and I think both were bad calls. So it's not just in the context of this game you fell apart. You fell apart because of that compilation of stuff. New York gets the penalty 4 or 5 minutes after the goal's called back. Daniel Royer scores. 1-1. You go to the break. Tied. Atlanta United's tweet was tied somehow. I like it. Then, opening the second half, what happens? Jeff Lorenowitz gets sent off. But then not sent off. And there we go. Actually, and Doyle at halftime.
By the way, the second time that had happened in like a month for Atlanta.
Yes, again. So Doyle at halftime of the Red Bulls match said, okay, so it turns out they were right to call off the Joseph goal. Great call, which I disagree with. Then still felt that penalty was soft as hell.
It was. It was soft. So was the Greg Garza one you earned in Orlando in the first game in Orlando when Orlando was on a winning streak. It happens.
It sure as hell wasn't as soft as that. Contact to the face is contact to the face. Flopping when you feel somebody's arm touch you is much different to me in terms of softness.
Hey, you know what? Miles might get a chance at
it's true.
At payback this not physically beating Bradley Wright Phillips, but Miles might get a shot at payback this weekend. We'll see.
Yeah, it's true. So to open the second half, after it's 1-1, almost immediately you get a red card shown to Jeff Lorenowitz. Then it's overturned. It takes 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. And then 51st minute, Bradley Wright Phillips scores. Then they get another one a few minutes later, and that's it. 51st and 55th. So if Atlanta didn't fall apart in the first half after the VAR goal brings it back and then the penalty, they definitely fell apart in the second after the Lorenowitz red that's rescinded, and you have no focus. And they gave up 2 goals in quick succession, which is not typical for this team. And you lose 3-1. Really weird game. Really strange game. Tough one to deal with emotionally, and this was early in the season, too. I think Atlanta kind of figured out how to roll with things a little bit more after this. But back to the original point, I completely agree, Jarrett. If the Red Bulls come in and play like they did early in this one, pretty open, they're going to have problems. Now, the question is, does Atlanta play like they did to start this match? Does Atlanta play very open and field a lineup like what they did there, where it was Gonzalez, Perez, Parkhurst, Robinson as your 3 center backs, Garza as the left wing back, Gressel as the right wing back, Lorenowitz, Nagbe, Miguel as your 3 central midfielders, Barco and Martinez up top. You will see Remedi in here somewhere. Could you see that exact lineup, Jarrett, except Remedi for Barco, move Almiron up to the second forward where he played against NYC, Nagbe becomes the more forward of the three of Lorenowitz, Remedi, Nagbe, with Gressel as a right wing back, Garza as a left wing back? Or do you have to get Franco Escobar in? It's tricky. A lot of decisions for Tata Martino.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, part of me wants to say, do what you did against New York City at home. Run that lineup back out there, but it's not the same. You're not going to face the same team. You're not going to face the same style necessarily. So, it's really easy to say do that again, but it's not the same game. I would love to see Miles in there again. Look, I get he had the soft penalty on Bradley Wright Phillips. I think he's a different player now than he was then. A much better player. And I think he could be really important, especially with his closing speed in a game like this where he's able to close things down. And, as far as other changes, I'm curious what shape Tito's going to be in when he comes back, because that did not look like a normal Tito Villalba that you saw in New York. And it did not look like a 100% Tito Villalba. And if he's available to play either as that second forward or come off the bench, I think that's another frying pan you can throw in the face if it's available. And I don't know if I start Barco or not in this, honestly. I like what Barco's been giving me off the bench recently, and maybe that's what I need from him is, hey, late in the game, I need you to go out there for 15 minutes and run around like a chicken with your head cut off and just be disruptive, and maybe you create an opportunity.
I don't want to see Barco pigeonholed into that because I think he gives you more.
I don't think you pigeonhole him long term. Is that?
No, definitely not that. That's not where I'm going. I think if that's what you're looking to for him, I think you've got different guys who can do it. I think he can give you more important things than that. I don't know if he starts here though. I think Remedi has to start. I think the question is where you play Miguel Almiron. Do you play him as the 10 where he has typically played? Because if you do, then that means you've got to figure out Lorenowitz, Remedi, Nagbe, who sits. Unless you move Jeff to the back, then you're sitting Miles, and then you're potentially sitting Escobar.
Are we sure Jeff is 100% for this game?
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's a bunch of questions. Yeah. We don't know. We don't know any of this right now. We're all speculating. But these are the questions that Tata Martino has right now. In the back, is it LGP, Parkhurst, and Escobar? Lorenowitz? Which one? Robinson? Who is it? Right wing back. Is it Escobar? Is it Gressel? Centrally, is it Gressel? Is it Miguel? Is it Nagbe? Holding midfield. Is it Lorenowitz? Is it Remedi? Is it Nagbe? Second forward. Is it Almiron? Is it Villalba? Is it Barco? There's a lot of questions. And there's not easy answers here. So what will be the approach from Atlanta here? I agree. I think the Red Bulls can't come in and play open. I think they have to look back at the way this game started and say, you know what, we were one call away from being down 2-0 and licking our wounds and probably going home. We got a little fortunate there. Agree with the call or not agree with the call, you got fortunate. So what do they do in response to that? And how does Atlanta play? Because Atlanta in the NYC series did not play in the same way as they did against the Red Bulls in the first game back in May. So what does it look like? These are going to be the big questions this week. We're going to take a break, come back. We'll get into a little bit more of those options for Atlanta. And I want to hear from John and Jarrett, like what they think the approach should be here. Is it go for goals early? Is it keep it tight? Is it look to play on the counter? Is it don't keep possession, make New York carry the play? How would you approach it from an Atlanta perspective in game one at home against the Red Bulls? We're going to take a break. Think about it. We'll be back after this.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket, you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky and Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, November 20th edition. Talking Atlanta United, New York Red Bulls, first leg Eastern Conference Finals at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on Saturday. Red Bulls have to be careful because they were at risk of getting run out of the building back in May. They bounced back and Atlanta fell apart after a couple things go against them, and Red Bulls get the 3-1 win there. A little bit of a deceiving scoreline, honestly, a deceiving result based off the first 30 minutes. John, if you're Atlanta United here and you had success against NYC playing a cagier style, looking more like a 5-3-2 than a 3-5-2, sitting a little deeper, not trying to dominate possession, is that your approach against the Red Bulls? Do you feel like you have to open it up at home and get goals in leg one? Just not so much like X's and O's, but what do you feel like Atlanta United has to think about going into the first leg? Is it keeping it tight or is it getting goals?
You know, I mean, I like the notion of the 5-3-2 as opposed to the 3-5-2. I like that. In the break, I was trying to figure out what my starting 11 was going to be like, and I had Escobar in, considering his play against NYCFC and how instrumental he has been with what he's been able to do the last little while. And I think it's the 5-3-2 and having Red Bulls try to possess the ball. It's like, here, go ahead, possess, and then work on the counter and get your turnovers and get your opportunities and cash them in. That's my gut in all of this.
So look to counter, not carry possession, make Red Bulls do it.
Yep.
Okay. Jarrett, what about you? What's the number one thing on the board for Atlanta United going into this? What do they have to accomplish in the first leg?
Well, my only concern with doing that, and while I like the idea, John, my only concern with doing that is I worry that Red Bulls would be like, yeah, that's fine. We'll hold possession here. We'll get out of here with a goalless draw, and we'll take our chances in Harrison.
Understood.
That otherwise, I'm on board with you on that front. I still think you go with the 3-5-2 look, the 5-3-2 look, because it's what's been working for you. And I think you adjust in the game. I mean, you don't go in there determined. I think you And I know you hear all the time about with Red Bulls, when you do something with Red Bulls, you have to stick to it against them. And it's a little risky to try and change things up, but I think it's an option to kind of figure out, are they gonna press super high on you? I mean, how are they gonna play their game? Are they gonna do what they usually do? I mean, I think you also look at what Columbus was doing, but you and Columbus aren't the same teams in terms of how you deal with the press and how you keep the back line intact. And you're going to need good performances from guys on defense. But I think I'd go 3-5-2, and I would stick Gressel out there on the wing and ask him to be the best right wing back in the league, which is what he's been.
So then let me follow the flow chart. One thing real quick before we go down this lineup rabbit hole. 3-5-2, 5-3-2. It's not a dramatic difference. Don't get caught up in that.
Oh no.
It's more of stance, and is it attacking? Is it defensive? I think there's been a lot of back and forth. Formation gets just overblown in terms of some stuff. Literally, the difference between a 5-3-2 and a 3-5-2 is how deep your wingbacks are. That's it. Mm-hmm. It's not that big of a deal. It'll look like a 3-5-2. It'll look like a 5-3-2 at different points in the match. So, if you play Gressel as the right wing back and not centrally where he has played lately, who sits? Because he's one of your guys on the back. You would expect Parkhurst and LGP are two more. Garza on the left side?
Garza on the left side. I'm sitting either Franco or Miles.
Okay.
And it's going to be LGP, Parkhurst, and either Franco or Miles, and then one of them sits.
Okay.
But I like what Gressel gives you. And, I mean, I don't know how to put it other than to say that in the last game when he's in the midfield, I think he is a step off of the pace that I want in that midfield compared to everybody else.
Yeah, to me, he is slightly above average as a central midfielder in this league. I think he is a top right wing back in this league. And I think you put him in a better position to succeed out wide. And at home, where you need more goals, I think that's important because he is one of your big-time creators. He doesn't create as many chances centrally. He creates his chances from out wide. So you'd like to put him in that position. For me, if you do that, I think you have to play Franco on the three center back setup, because what that does is it gives you the possibility for more cover, because you want Julian to go. You want Gressel to be able to push up high. You want the field to get tilted a little bit to his side. That means Escobar sliding over to sort of play and function like a right back when Gressel goes. Okay, you've got somebody who's very mobile and has played plenty of right back this year, played plenty of right wing back. You have, I think, a more ready player to cover for Gressel so he can be more free to go. And that's what you're going to need in that situation. My biggest thing is coming back to the central midfield. Is Jeff ready to go? If he is, does he go straight back into the lineup? And where do you play Miguel Almiron? To me, that's the biggest question here. You go back and look at how Martino approached the NYC matches all year long, and Miguel Almiron was in that second forward role all season. If you're going to sit deeper and you're going to play more direct, that gives you a dynamic duo up top in Miguel and Joseph, who are going to try to combine and make something out of nothing. If you're not trying to build up play, that makes a lot of sense. But then if you do that, we've seen Gressel as the 10 lately. And if you're going to play Gressel at right wing back, what do you do with the 10? Does it become a Barco, or do you go a little more defensive with Jeff, Remedi, and Nagbe becoming the 10? You've got different possibilities here, and it depends on how aggressive you want to be, in my opinion. If you feel like you have to get goals in leg one and you have to create chances, you have to play Gressel at right wing back. And you have to make a tough decision on, does Gressel give you enough chance creation from the right wing to be able to play more secure in the middle with Larinowitz, Remedi, Nagbe? Or do you need a Barco or an Almiron as the 10 with Villalba up top with Martinez if Villalba's ready to go? A lot of it's going to depend on how they come back from their international matches. We'll see where Tito's at, because if he's available, that gives you a different conversation. But remember, as we talked about a little bit ago, Romario Williams is not going to be available. You don't have that ready-made replacement up top outside of Tito. Do you want to hold Tito on the bench to be a late-game sub here? You might. Because of Romario's absence, you might need to think that way. It's going to be fascinating, the lineup. It's going to be probably the most anticipated starting 11 all season because of all the different possibilities for what Atlanta can do here. And I think if you're Chris Armas and you're sitting there looking at this and wondering what you're going to be facing, I think you're kind of freaking out because you don't know. And there's so many different types of looks that you could see. It's going to be hard to prepare from the Red Bulls' perspective, because Atlanta could be defensive, they could be attacking, they could be very open, they could be very secure. Lots of different ways Tata Martino can approach it. We're going to get your final Tuesday thoughts and anything else that comes across in our last segment of the show. We're going to take our final break now. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
Living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
Had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Final segment, Soccer Down Here. Tuesday Thoughts edition of the show, November 20th. We've talked playoff format. We've talked actual playoffs. Lots of stuff on the agenda for SDH on a Tuesday Thoughts ahead of Thanksgiving. A couple things real quick before we get to the Twitter timeline. Osvaldo Alonso is a free agent. Seattle might try to re-sign him. They do have a little bit of time to make an offer, but he is out of contract, and he would be a free agent if he does not go back to Seattle. That would be an interesting one because I thought he didn't have anything left in the tank, but he showed he did late in the season.
Somebody could use him.
Oh, yeah, definitely somebody could use him. It's going to be intriguing as to see where he might end up. Questions about Columbus with their off season. The biggest one is when are they going to get some clarification about who's actually running the team? Because that's kind of an important thing here. Is it the Cleveland Browns group? Is it Anthony Precourt? what's happening on that transition and transfer of operating rights, because there's some pretty big questions. Zach Steffen and Will Trapp, remember, there were offers for them in the summer window. I don't know if you see Zach Steffen in Columbus next year, but who's going to make that decision? Will Trapp, there were offers. Does he go? Who's going to negotiate that? Pedro
Does
Santos.
Justin Meram have anything left after his surgery? Like, what is he going to be coming back? He's on the other side of 30.
Yeah, Meram and Pedro Santos are both under contract. You got to get more out of them. Meram, you would think that after the Orlando debacle, you'd see a more productive Justin Meram. Pedro Santos, I don't know. You haven't really seen it in a year and a half now. So looks like Federico Higuain will be back for another year. Jossie Zardes is under contract. The core of your team's under contract, but Steffen and Trapp potentially going is huge for Columbus. We talked about it yesterday. Oscar Pareja, it was official from FC Dallas that he is leaving. I thought the piece they did with him on Dallas social media was really well produced, and you could you could really truly feel the emotion of how difficult of a decision this was for Oscar and how much Dallas means to him. The thing is, though, from a FC Dallas perspective, he talked about leaving and looking for more opportunities and looking to grow as a coach. It runs the risk of portraying FC Dallas as small time, and that was kind of my gut feeling. Like, I thought it was very touching to do this for Oscar, and you needed to do something for sure because he is as beloved as a figure in MLS with his club. But he's not going to be at your club anymore, and if he goes to Tijuana to Xolos, if I'm a Dallas fan, I don't really like watching this guy go to a club that I don't feel like is all that bigger than mine. Shouldn't be anyway. It's a weird conundrum for Dallas. I thought it was really nice to give Pareja that opportunity, but I thought the club maybe could have managed their perception a little bit more. Does that make sense, John? I don't know if you got that same vibe watching it.
Yeah, no, it's a delicate dance to do one of these things. You want to, you want to sit there and give the proper tribute, but at the same time, you don't want to run that risk of lessening yourself in the process. And you're acknowledging that the person that you're honoring is out the door, but you don't want to come across like you're belittling yourself as the guy is going out the door. And it's a delicate dance and how you try to figure out how to word it.
Yeah, that was the tricky bit of it for me. The other bit of news around the league was Philadelphia. We talked about Jim Curtin coming back for another year for now. Ernst Tanner had his end of the season media event. I thought the Curtin thing was weird. I mean, I get it. If Tanner doesn't have anybody in mind, it's tough if you're Curtin to have to deal with that. It's an awkward situation. And some of the things Tanner said, he wants the team to be more dynamic and have more tactical flexibility. Those are kind of vague terms. What does that actually mean? Like, he wants the team to be more dynamic. Okay, define it.
Yeah.
What does that mean? It feels like a buzzword. Tactical flexibility,
then that's what.
Sure.
Corporate buzzwords.
Dynamic is definitely a corporate buzzword in the world of soccer. Tactical flexibility is not. That is more about your plan B. That's something like Atlanta has in spades. I think they're probably the most tactical or most flexible team tactically in Major League Soccer. Red Bulls, for example, don't really have a lot of tactical flexibility. They have one way to play. Philadelphia pretty much has one way to play. Jim Curtin was able to find some different, flexibility in it by moving CJ Sapong out to the wing, playing Corey Burke up top instead. That gave you a different look in the same shape. So that part completely down with. You got to have the players to do it. More dynamic, it feels buzzwordy. Didn't seem too optimistic about bringing Borek Dochkal back. Talked about it being out of their hands and talked about Dochkal wanting to return to Europe. That doesn't sound good. You also have John McCarthy, backup goalkeeper, Raymond Gaddis, outside back, and central midfielder Warren Creavalle out of contract. There's an offer on the table for Warren Creavalle. I think he would end up in a lot of different places in MLS if he is available, whether it's waiver draft or re-entry draft. He's a very good piece that I think could be a starter for some teams. Gaddis as well. I think Gaddis could easily be a depth piece for anybody in the league and potentially a starter for some. McCarthy has been behind Blake. He's not going to beat Blake out. McCarthy is a borderline starter at this level. He just has to find the opportunity to do it. So, makes sense to me. Questions and Tuesday thoughts from the Twitters, John. What else do we have?
Let me be irate real quick about. You got a guy who could be he's a borderline starter in MLS. He's not going to be Andre Blake. That's fair. Andre Blake's one of the best goalkeepers in this hemisphere. Mm-hmm. You got a lot of borderline starters all over the league. How on God's green fuzzy earth, how we have this many teams in this league who cannot find a goalkeeper when some of the teams have two legitimate goalkeepers? Chicago, I'm looking right at your just tire fire of a dumpster.
Hello, Chicago.
And the Colorado situation. You want to talk about?
Well, no. That doesn't apply because they made their big signing in Tim Howard to sell jerseys and to sell shirts and to get some attention. That's a completely different situation. The fact that he got old very quickly is a different thing. But you weren't going to cut Tim Howard. You weren't going to trade Tim Howard.
But you're still not going to let Zach McMath even touch the pitch with regularity.
John, are you seriously going to bench Tim Howard if you're that team? Let's be real. Not happening.
Haram.
Before 2019, no. In 2019, yeah, probably.
Oh no, that's a different conversation. If he's back in 2019, I'd be shocked. You weren't gonna put him on the bench this year, though.
No.
I think he ends up at Memphis 901 in some capacity.
He's gonna pull a Drogba.
Really.
That
wouldn't surprise me a bit.
He might retire as a player. That wouldn't surprise me either.
Chewy with a point that we found in the break. Listen to Ivy Board. If you're not playing Gressel centrally, then he needs to go to the bench. Gressel got owned by Kamara Lawrence. Only Escobar can deal with him physically.
I would disagree that Gressel got owned by Kamara Lawrence in that game at Red Bull Arena, but I do understand your point, and that's why if you play Gressel out wide, this is your question, and this is what it comes down to. Do you want to be defensive or do you want to be attacking? If you play Gressel at right wing back, I think you're being attacking. So, okay, you're going to risk a little bit with that. You're going to risk Kamara Lawrence getting behind Gressel. That's why I think you have to play Franco Escobar as the right center back in that case, because Escobar gives you the ability to slide over, function as a right back, deal with Lawrence, but you get Gressel in the position where he can create the most chances for you. And Gressel was one of your top guys in creating chances this season. You're going to have to create some. So you have to figure out where you're going to make a trade-off. For me, I'd be okay with that. If it's a 3-5-2 with Gressel as the right wing back, with Escobar as the right center back who can cover for Gressel as he goes and to deal with Lawrence. I do think the Lawrence owning Gressel bit at Red Bull Arena is a little overblown. I don't think Lawrence did a ton there, but Gressel defensively is more of a liability than Escobar, absolutely. That's why I think you can maybe get the best of both worlds, pairing them up in that sense of right wing back and right center back.
Elliot Beaven thinks Villalba having an international game for Paraguay will help his fitness level.
It could. It definitely could. The travel could be the problem, though, and we'll have to see how that goes. And you have to think about, okay, if I need a late game sub up top, what do I do? Because you don't have Romario Williams anymore. You don't want to turn into NYCFC where you don't have that attacking option off the bench late. Now, Game 1 and Game 2 are different scenarios. Game 2, I think absolutely you want to hold somebody as an attacking option off the bench because you could be going to extra time. You could need a goal late to survive. A little bit different conversation. Game 1, you could go for what you can get early. You could go with an attack-minded lineup of Martinez, Villalba, and Almiron as the 10. And then make a decision, you know what? Okay, at 60, we've got a goal. We've got 2 goals. Let's get a little more pragmatic here and pull Tito. You could do that there. You're not thinking as much about a late-game attacker to change it. You want that attacker to be on from the jump. A lot of it depends on how they come back from the international break, though. And that's the great unknown going into this for Atlanta.
FC Waffle, my key to the match versus Red Bulls is Brad Gazan improving his long-range distribution, especially diagonal balls to our wingers going forward.
I think his long-range distribution is far better than people give it credit for. You look at his completed passes over 30 yards, and he completes more than anybody in the team. So, I mean, it's happening. Does he have, maybe a lower percentage than some guys? Yeah, he does. But a lot of that's by design, where he's playing that ball not so much to the winger, because Gazan doesn't really have those opportunities. He doesn't have the same opportunities that an LGP or a Parkhurst or an Escobar or a Robinson have as the center back to hit those wingers on the run. Gazan, more of his long passing is from a goal kick, from more of a flat position as opposed to a team trying to break, as it should be. I mean, that's what you want. So he's trying to hit those balls into the corners to your wing backs up high, kind of around midfield. It's a tighter spot to put it in. But I think like Gazan being criticized for his distribution, I just honestly don't get it. This has been a knock for a little while. I disagree with it.
You ready for a little stoppage time?
Sure.
Katie Weaver with the food, and this is something else that is definitely a Southern, a footprintism as opposed to anything else.
Okay.
I think here in the South, we refer to rolls in some parts as Sister Schuberts and not just rolls. So Katie says that you have to have also Sister Schuberts and the hashtag food down here.
Where does that come from? Because that's one that I don't know.
It's the brand name.
Okay. I don't remember the brand.
And it literally is Sister Schubert's rolls, and people just refer to them as Sister Schubert's. And that's more probably of a deep Southern reference over anything. I know that some folks just refer to them as rolls, but I think that in the deep South, they're referred to as Sister Schubert's because it's the brand name, and that's just what you call them.
I think we just went generic rolls, and I honestly don't remember seeing that brand. Huh. Okay.
Yeah, Sister Schubert's. They are a part of the holiday in the Nelson Mosley clan.
Is that a Southern Georgia thing? Because I don't know if it's an Atlanta area thing as much.
No, it's not an Atlanta thing. Like I said, it's the further away you get from here, and the deeper south you go, they refer to them as Sister Schubert's.
Okay.
I see. We always did Womp biscuits and Womp rolls.
No,
Womp?
I know that. Yes.
What's that?
Not my thing, but yeah, I know of it.
Womp is it's the cans of like the Pillsbury cans of biscuits, the cylindrical tubes. Yeah, you got to womp them to open them.
Ah, okay.
You womp them on the countertop.
Yes.
Open them up.
And then they pop open. Yeah. Okay.
Well, they're Womp biscuits.
Okay.
Or you make them homemade and you make cat head biscuits.
Okay.
Because they're the size of a cat's head.
Okay. That I definitely didn't know. The Morning Colonel says, cornbread dressing with my own personal gravy boat. The gravy starts with a roux. I resent having to choose just one. Hashtag about food.
Yeah, no. The roux is, you don't eat the roux. The gravy starts with the roux. Like sauces start with roux. Roux is a starting point to something for sure.
Mm-hmm. The roux is the Tito Villalba, whatever you're making. It's a great start.
Oh no, I wouldn't go there. I think it's more of like the backbone. It's the Eric Remedi. Eric Remedi is the roux of Atlanta United.
Yeah, but Tito was the first designated player, which is where
I thought that was LGP.
No, it's Remedi. It's because of the role he plays now.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean you could go in terms of signings, but I'm going to go more in terms of like impact. So I'm going to go Eric Remedi is the roux of Atlanta United. I would go Tito as the mac and cheese.
Now we need to take Eric Remedi to an LSU game and just let him eat. Let all of them take all
Eric
of
Remedi
Labanda.
would enjoy eating at an LSU game. Yeah,
take all of Labanda to like LSU. I don't know, like an LSU Ole Miss game or like an LSU Auburn game or something.
Could you imagine Labanda at the Grove?
Well, we almost lost Katy Perry at the Grove, so I don't know if we can trust Labanda at an Ole Miss game. Katy Perry, I don't think has been the same since her day in Oxford, Mississippi.
Or Labonda at Iron Bowl.
That's not as much fun.
I once watched a child flip off Dennis Franchione at an Iron Bowl, like a 4-year-old. It was amazing.
Oh, that's amazing.
Dennis Franchione's calling the game. The kid looks up and like the parents look up and see that's Dennis Franchione. They tell their kid, and their kid turns around and flips them off. Kid, you weren't even alive when Dennis Franchione was coaching Alabama. This is some transgenerational hate.
Yes. Joe Bost, hashtag Tuesday Gobble Day, hashtag no nasty salad, dressing, green bean casserole, squash casserole, pecan pie, carrot cake, a little turkey. I'm good.
Not the carrot cake fan.
No.
Squash casserole, yes. Green bean casserole for sure. I'm not the biggest pecan pie fan. Pecan pie, depending on where you are and how you pronounce it, because it can go either way. I'm not the biggest fan. I go apple. I go pumpkin. I'll go
lemon meringue.
For Thanksgiving, I don't think lemon meringue first. Honestly, I go apple with some Cool Whip or some kind of whip topping, or even some vanilla ice cream.
I can't do pumpkin. No.
Oh, pumpkin pie is good stuff.
Chocolate, pecan, or chess pie.
Chest pie. What's that?
Chess. CHESS. Chess pie. It's basically buttermilk pie. It's basically.
Oh yeah, that's right.
If Paula Deen wanted to kill you and herself and the entire state in one swoop motion, you'd make a chess pie.
Yeah.
What about a dump cake?
Right.
I'm fine with that.
Like dump cake?
What's that one?
Yeah.
I don't know that one.
It's where you take a bunch of different flavors, like a strawberry and a blueberry, and you mix it all together, and you just kind of throw it into a pan, kind of makeshift, and it turns into its own little hybrid pie kind of thing. So it's called a dump cake.
Every time. That's not like you follow a recipe.
Well, usually the base is usually the blueberry strawberry.
Sure.
But yeah, you just take what you have and you throw it in. It's basically like a lagniappe idea. You sit there, you take what you have, you throw it in, and you just kind of do a dump cake with it.
That is a dessert goulash, where it is just what you got and you make it work.
Yep. Michael Ruiz says sweet potato souffle is where it's at, and he even got the accent mark over the E in souffle. He says, I stand with Mr. Nelson, and I've never heard of roux. Had to look it up.
Wow, man. I have really come around on the joys and wonders of the sweet potato as I have gotten older. It is an amazing thing.
Nope. Does not happen. I've just never been a sweet potato person.
You don't like pumpkin. You don't like sweet potato. You can make soups out of both, and they're both excellent.
Nope.
Yeah, John. I'm not a sweet potato pie fan as much. I'm not as into that. But sweet potatoes on the whole, yeah, I've really come around on sweet potatoes. They're good stuff.
Oh, Colonel, by the way, Jared, loves your expression, tire fire of a dumpster. He says, if that wasn't a thing before, it sure as hell is now. Talking Chicago Fire.
Chicago Fire is their own
tire fire of a dumpster.
They're special.
Veljko Paunovic was the one in the barn kicking over the lantern and setting everything ablaze.
So Veljko Paunovic is Mrs. O'Leary's cow?
Yes, thank you. I couldn't remember if it was Mrs. O'Leary or not, but yeah. Veljko Paunovic is both Mrs. O'Leary's cow and Nero playing on his lyre as the middle of Rome burns so he can clear it out for his palace.
Man, that's a lot.
And, yeah. Katie Weaver says, my mom hails from Toronto by way of Ohio, so no idea if Schubert's is a southern thing. We just always have them. Oh, okay.
Okay.
So I just thought.
Yeah, I don't know it. I don't know that brand.
Huh. But yeah, we always have Sister Schubert's, and that's the first thing out of the boss's mouth. It's like, yep, it's not roll, it's Sister Schubert. So,
okay, so Andrew Wiebe has started something on Twitter, which is very timely and very good. He just tweeted out that turkey is the most overrated, consistently underwhelming, least deserving centerpiece of any holiday meal. The 2018
Seriously?
San Jose earthquakes of Thanksgiving. For some reason, high expectations, but worst food on the table.
Stop.
Then he hasn't had good turkey.
No. Well, turkey can go not so good very easily. Good turkey is good San Jose Earthquakes with Tommy Thompson pulling tricks and Jackson Ewell picking out passes and Chris Wondolowski scoring all the goals. Bad Turkey is the other 28 games.
Bad.
28. Yeah, that's the bad Turkey part of it. I can see his take. I kind of like the ham better. That's just me.
Oh yeah, honey baked ham? You serious? Oh yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You freaked out about saying turkey's overrated when I'm going to have the ham more than the turkey at the holiday meal. That's just me.
Turkey we always had. And I remember my mother used to baste turkey. She used to baste it with mayonnaise and then let it cook for like 24 hours, and just occasionally go in and just cover and just like not slather it, but just kind of coat it in mayonnaise, and then
it would glazed.
Yeah, and it would absorb the mayonnaise, and so the turkey would stay very moist. But
see, that's
it didn't taste. It didn't taste like mayonnaise. You won't get the taste, but you get the moisture and really juicy turkey, really good. Or Cajun deep fried turkey is also an option.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, turkey. I like it, but it's more of a base. Like I'm not just gonna eat the turkey by itself, although I will eat the leftover turkey in a sandwich the next day because that's good stuff. It's about the dressing or stuffing, depending on where you're at. It is about the gravy. It's about the stuff to go with the turkey as opposed to the turkey itself.
Only the police call it stuffing.
Wow. I know some people do, so I'm trying to be sensitive to the
stuffing instead of potatoes. I remember the ad campaign. Yeah.
Well, but that's not truly stuffing, though. Like it's called stuffing, but it's not stuffed into the bird.
No. Snowman says he's going to be in the Grove for Thanksgiving. Deep fried and smoked turkey tailgate. # Tuesday Thoughts.
See, that's quality, and hopefully he will bounce back from the Grove better than Katy Perry did. Katy Perry chopped her hair off not too long after going to the Grove.
That was such a bad idea. Kind of like Maury Povich being a celebrity picker.
You're crazy. That was the last amazing celebrity picker that they had on College Game Day that everybody sees it like, what in the world is going on? It's Katy Perry, and she was like up on all the stuff about who to make fun of, and Jarrett, she did the corn dog thing, and that got people all riled up, and then she just went and partied afterwards in downtown Oxford.
First of all, corn dogs are delicious.
They are.
And anyone who's complaining about anything smelling like corn dogs just doesn't like being happy.
Exactly.
Second of all, he's the Big Ten's problem now. The Big 12's problem, excuse me.
Yes, the Big 12-10. Yes.
No, yeah. The last great celebrity predictor on Game Day was Katy Perry and Mississippi, because it was so unexpected and so crazy.
I believe if I'm not mistaken, they absolutely annihilated LSU in that game too.
Yeah, they did. That was the day. Like, there was a great piece. I can't remember which outlet had it. It could have been The Athletic, going into the behind the scenes of how all of that happened, because Katy Perry didn't go to Ole Miss. Her manager did.
No.
And she wanted a college football experience. Don't be grumpy guy about Katy Perry picking college football games. It was fun.
I'll be grumpy guy on Katy Perry picking college football games.
You need to appreciate Katy Perry. Anyway, so Katy Perry goes to the game. She wants her college football experience. They get her on game day. She gets like gift and all the Twitter and Instagram posts about everything she said and did. Then she's on the sideline at the game and like losing her security people because she's just running around being a crazy half student, half fan, crazy person. Then she's stage diving off of bars afterwards in Oxford. It was bonkers. Like, I remember
it's
Twitter
either
just losing its mind.
For the Win or Grantland.
No, it was a recent one that went into it, so it wasn't Grantland.
Oh, okay.
Maybe
I don't
Ringer?
remember who had it. It might. I think it was Ringer. That's actually a good call. It was a good read about how that all came together and you know, just how it all played out. But yeah, that was fun. Like, these are the types of things that, okay, you have the College Game Day thing, and yeah, College Game Day is not what it was. We don't have anything like that.
We'd still get Lee Corso cussing randomly on TV. That's always fun.
Who are we going to get to put on the a mascot head. Who's going to put on the Fang head when they pick the Philadelphia Union to win a playoff game or something? Who's going to do this for MLS? Is that Warshaw? Does he do that? Does Doyle put on the Fang head?
I'll do that in a heartbeat.
You're not Lee Corso.
Hey, you haven't heard me cuss on live TV.
Well, that's true. He does have a tendency to do that these days.
It's amazing every time.
But we don't have that because college football and ESPN, that is what I thought of when I was in college. It was such a big deal to have that come to your town.
But they don't have any imagination anymore.
Okay. Yes, they don't. I'm talking about the idea of that, what it used to be. Major League Soccer in the United States needs that type of thing. We don't have our college game day. We don't have our Inside the NBA. We don't have our Baseball Tonight. We don't have those. Hockey Night in Canada. We don't have that. That's a big part of it. I say we start it. That we have to figure out. Well, we have to find a network, and we have to find a travel budget, and we have to find lots of things to do that. So I don't know if that's going to happen for us. But if somebody with money wants to make that happen, then we can figure this out because it needs to. Because that side of it is part of the product. It's part of the discussion. College game day, when your college got picked to host college game day, oh, man. And now you occasionally see that type of reaction. Washington State this year. That was massive because they'd never been.
UCF.
It's UCF. Anyway,
no one likes UCF, and they passed up on Kennesaw State in 5 overtimes of hell with Jacksonville State. They deserve what they get.
Well, and what about when they went to North Dakota State and absolutely shut down downtown Fargo? That's what it should be.
That's what it was, and now it's been to so many places that it's not what it is week after week. And you've had different people come on the show and different things. It has maybe run its course. I'm talking about the idea of it, not the nuts and bolts of college game day anymore. I'm talking about when it became a thing. It helped elevate the college football product on ESPN. The other shows that I mentioned elevate the product of the game. We need something like that. We don't need the only show about MLS. 2 shows. There are 2. One is in Spanish, Somos, MALAS, on Univision Deportes.
Yep.
That is kind of in random time slots, and it's a recap show. And MLS Rewind on ESPN Plus, which happens most weeks but not all, and is kind of an afterthought on the ESPN platform. We need a show like that for Major League Soccer. We need something big like that because it's part of telling the story. It's part of getting people excited. It's part of the reason why you would watch that Ole Miss LSU game if you're not an Ole Miss or an LSU fan, because College Game Day made it a big deal because it got talked about and the story got told. If you are an Atlanta United fan, you might not watch the Sunday national televised game for MLS because you don't have a reason to. That reason needs to be made. That's something that's a big part of it. So that's our roundabout way of taking Katy Perry and College Game Day to an MLS topic, and I think I've warped my brain in doing so.
Other stuff. Soccer for Good OG. Joe Robbins says, lemon meringue pie is a Thanksgiving staple along with sweet potato pie. It represents the blending of cultures in the Robbins household. We can't talk about dressing/stuffing, though. Hashtag East meets West meets South. Colonel says, Sister Shubich, yeast rolls are so good we no longer make them from scratch. Available in freezer sections of grocery stores through Georgia, including ATL Somebody Help at Longshoe.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
Next time I see you, when you're close to your refrigerator, I will give them to you. Because I know where I can pick some up. Katie Weaver says, we need Doyle wearing a fang head and Millie Bobby Brown jumping off the bar at the Claremont. Hashtag MLS Game Day.
Oh, there you go. Yes. That would be. I think Millie Bobby Brown would enjoy that because she's been at quite a few Atlanta United matches, and it wouldn't be It wouldn't be surprising to us because we know she's a fan. But that would be that thing that would be like, Millie Bobby Brown is celebrating an Atlanta United win by jumping off the bar at the Claremont? Wow. That's a big thing if you're national and you're looking at it like, what? What just happened? But yeah, if Doyle wants to wear a Fang head anytime, that's cool. Or Cosmo Galaxy. That's another one you could wear.
Is Zlatan newsworthy of an air horn in stoppage time?
Is there anything to say about it other than Zlatan is posturing for more money and or more attention?
Reportedly agreed to a €2 million deal that will take him back to AC Milan.
That would get an air horn. Who is reporting that this has happened?
La Gazzetta dello Sport. CalcioMercato.com and Marca.
Okay, you're getting enough. I mean, we'll see. That's a possibility.
6-month contract also includes the option of a year-long extension.
Well, the 6-month contract part makes no sense because he's under another year at LA Galaxy. So unless that was an option that we didn't know about. Remember, that was reported 2 years, $3 million total, 1.5 per. So he's under a contract. Like when you move, the contract doesn't get ripped up. Unless that's part of this deal, which would be strange if you're Zlatan to take a 1.5 off the table for 6 months with an option at the end of 6. That feels like a loan with an option to buy. And we'll see how it plays out. That as you just read that makes no sense whatsoever.
It is said the striker is now waiting on Rossoneri director Leonardo to contact him so they can finalize the move.
Well, he's probably got to wait on the club he's actually under contract on, too. And this is the type of nonsense that I don't like when it comes to Zlatan, is that's incredibly disrespectful to the team that paid your salary in 2018. To say, I'm waiting on AC Milan to finalize it. You need to wait on LA Galaxy if they're going to sell you or not. And they're not going to hold you hostage because they'd be stupid to. But there is that factor. So I'm dubious about the way that's reported because he has a year on a contract that I don't think he's ripping up to take a 6-month contract. There's no logic in that. That makes no sense. Stay tuned.
And yes, and the host of Soccer Over There, Nick Alifi, says it makes no sense unless there's an early opt-out.
Unless there's an early opt-out or some kind of an option that hasn't been picked up yet or something like that. Otherwise, to me, it sounds like a loan by the Galaxy to AC Milan for 6 months with an option for Milan to then buy him and sign him to another year contract. That would be the way it would work as what we currently know, which is completely possible. It would be completely possible. Basically be like a 6-month extension on the end of the contract that would end at the end of 2019 if Milan makes the deal happen. But it sounds like it'd be a loan with an option to buy, not...
Yeah, and according to Nick, he says all Milan deals are loans with options to buy. It's the only way they can finance the patchwork roster this year.
Exactly. So that would be my guess, is Galaxy would loan him for 6 months with an option to buy. If Milan buys him, then okay, he's gone. If not, then he comes back for the second half of the LA Galaxy season. And boy, won't that be fun.
Fun. And I think that's a show.
That's a show. We're tapping out. Thanks, everybody, for listening to all kinds of nonsense today. Wednesday, we will have Joe Patrick on the show at 9:30 from Dirty South Soccer. More stuff as we get ready for Thanksgiving, as we get ready for Atlanta and the Red Bulls on the weekend tonight. Hopefully, I'll see some of you guys at Fido Irish Pub in Buckhead. Skate Nossinger from Atlanta United will be joining us. We'll be talking marketing strategy and how Atlanta United has become the biggest thing in American soccer, and Skate's had a huge hand in that. It's going to be a fun conversation with her. We'll also talk Atlanta and Red Bulls as well. Myself and Jimmy Vance will be there. Mike Conti will be at a concert. He's got stuff. He's at the John Legend concert tonight.
Nice.
Conti's big time in us. We'll hold down the fort on Stoppage Time Live at Fido. Join us if you can. We start at 7 o'clock. If you can't, you can watch at facebook.com/929thegame. And with that said, we'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m., for a new Wall Pass Wednesday edition of Soccer Down here. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha, Sister Schubert, y'all.